welcome to Unstoppable Mindset. Thanks for being here and listening to us. Today we get to interview and chat with, well, I shouldn't say interview because I really feel these are conversations, but we get to talk with Gustavo or Gus Rodriguez. And Gus has a really interesting, I think, story to tell. He is not too far out of college. And I especially like the fact that he lives about 45 minutes to an hour south of me, down the hill, as we say here in California, in Riverside. And we'll get into more of his story and all that sort of stuff later. But Gus, welcome to Unstoppable Mindset. We're really glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So here we are. November 1st is when we're recording this. Did you go out trick-or-treating last night, Gus?
Actually, no, I just stayed home, passed out some candy, and then just pretty much just enjoyed a drink.
Yeah, I stayed home too. There's a person who works with me, Josie, and her family came over and trick-or-treated in our area, but one of the kids doesn't really like to go out, so he and I stayed and watched movies and ate popcorn and candy and stuff like that. So we had a good time. Yeah. So anyway, really glad you're here. So I know I'm looking at your bio. It said that you grew up in La Puente after coming here from Guatemala. When did you move here? How old were you when you moved from Guatemala?
I want to say I was about 5 years old when I moved.
So you have a little bit of a memory of Guatemala.
Yeah, a little vague, but I got a good amount.
So what brought you to the U.S.? What brought the family here as opposed to staying down there?
Just like many other parents, they just wanted a better education and everything for their kids. So, I started off going to school, La Salette Elementary and middle school, and then just kind of went from there.
Have you been back at all to visit Guatemala since moving up here?
No, not yet. I plan to one day. Just gonna take a little vacation over there, but for now, just enjoying California.
Yeah, well, you have some pretty good weather. You probably have warmer weather than we do up here in Victorville.
Right now, it's about like the low 80s. I prefer it during the summer. That's the one thing I don't like about Riverside is the heat.
Well, we get that in the summer too. We right now it's 64 outside. So yeah, definitely a little colder here than down the hill, as they say. But we are on the high desert, as it's called. So we're a little bit colder. Well, so tell me about growing up, what it was like and that sort of stuff.
Growing up, just like many other kids in the area of La Puente, you're very heavy Latino culture. My parents did a good job of, even though they didn't end up together, raising me and my sister. So a lot of growing up was just me kind of seeing mature conversations early on and just kind of seeing where I fit in the world, so to speak. I always tell people that I believe I'm an old soul in a young body just because I've seen a lot of mature conversations and had to do a lot of mature things at an early age. Usually because of finances or just seeing some similar things that my friends went through as well.
So it was a little bit tough from a financial standpoint.
Or
a lot of your growing up,
Yeah, it just depends on the time of the year.
What kind of conversations or what kind of things did you have to deal with?
Well, full respect to my family and my parents. At one point, the older I got, definitely issues such as like eviction possibilities and things like that. So kind of seeing that, and when I finally got my first job, truly valuing the most simple dollar, the value of money, so to speak, understanding the work someone has to put in to get that. And that's kind of helped shape a lot of, even back in high school, my mindset of, if I want to go to college, where am I going to get this money from? So definitely making sure I had good grades. I was involved heavily with extracurriculars, sports, anything I could do, organization on campus, so that way I could stand out more and then possibly get more scholarships so I could go to college. And, thankfully, that's exactly how it worked out.
Where'd you go to college?
Nearly about 3 minutes from where I live right now, at UC Riverside.
UC Riverside. My wife did her undergraduate work at UC Riverside a long time ago.
Nice. Fellow
So,
Highlander.
sorry.
A fellow Highlander.
Yeah. Yep. She was very involved back in the well, early 1970s and late 1960s in accessibility, and helped bring a lot of wheelchair access to the University of California at Riverside, and had some challenges. And during the International Year of the Disabled, she was involved from a local chapter standpoint. So she was very familiar with Riverside. I went to UC Irvine, so I was a little bit further down the road from you.
I get you. Zat zat.
Yeah. So when you went to UCR, what did you major in, or what did you decide to major in?
So I was like most people my age. I'm like, I don't know what I want to do exactly yet, but to play it safe, I was like, let me go into business. I studied business administration just because business is everywhere. So did that, and then the concentration was general management, just because I didn't want to limit myself to just marketing, to just supply chain or finance. I wanted to be able to dip my feet into everything, so to speak.
So you just didn't want to be a specialist as such.
Pretty much, I like to be in a spot where I have options.
So how did that work out?
So far, so good. Believe it or not, throughout the few jobs I worked in college, and also again the classes I took, I began to realize more of what I want to do, so to speak, or what environment I want to be in. And a lot of that came from when it comes to customer service. You know, I my patience is good if it's like my direct team, but my patience only goes so far. So I'd rather do it in, like, for example, I've been working in supply chain or logistics after college, and all my teams are really the only ones I have to deal with for the most part. And when I say that, it's like I only got to worry about developing them, coaching them up, making sure they're happy. I don't have to worry about anybody else. So those jobs are really my career, and like I said, those classes helped me realize that this is exactly more of my cup of tea, so to speak.
So you when did you graduate? I think 2019 was it?
Yes, sir.
Uh-huh. So what did you do when you graduated?
Thank God I had a job lined up to be an operations supervisor for DHL supply chain. Pretty much, I had like a week off after I graduated, and then just straight into work.
So DHL, the big shipping organization.
Yes, it's well, DHL supply chain is they're a third party. They deal with a lot of customers' products, so to speak. So a lot of people confuse DHL supply chain with DHL Express. That's like
different organization. Okay.
Yeah.
They're not related?
Oh no, they're related, just different branches.
Different branches, but it's all the same sort of large company. So what does
Yeah.
it mean, DHL supply chain, and what you do and what you did?
So DHL, it was, I believe, it was an acronym for the founding brothers. I can't remember their names, I'm being honest, but I know it was that's where the DHL came from. And then what I did as an operations supervisor was basically you have a team of between 20 plus team members, getting them to help us get the work done, whether it's receiving, picking, putting away product, or loading the product in an efficient and safe manner, of course. So we worked in a warehouse, and we deal with the customer Campbell's. So we had to deal with a lot of Campbell soup, any smaller companies that they bought, like V8, Prego sauce, and many more.
So as a supervisor in the process, so what did you do, and is it still what you do? What did you do, and do you do?
So my job is to make sure, well, the way I would explain my job, because I don't want to just follow like the standard stuff that supervisors do. I like to go above and beyond. So my job was first and foremost that the team was safe, whatever they did, because we were working with heavy, 5,000 pieces of equipment, making sure that they're happy. And if not happy, at least content, because as much as I want to make sure everyone's happy, I know you can't make everybody happy. But everyone gets along, they respect each other. I used to look at our performance metrics, whether it was individually by team member or as a team as a whole, and find ways to coach up team members, take away barriers, make sure they need the proper training, they got it, being able to just explain the business from top end to bottom. So that way, I know we're possibly losing money, and at the same time, taking the feedback of team members like, hey, I think we could do this process better, and doing the deep dive to continuously improve processes.
So clearly, teamwork is a very important concept to you.
Yes. Yeah. Without teamwork, a lot of my success would not be here.
So, what do you do specifically to create a team or build the team and keep the team kind of not only focused from a business standpoint, but also motivated to continue to do their work?
Well, first and foremost, at least with me, it starts with getting to know all my team members. Again, the operations supervisor was my first role right out of college. Since then, I've done inventory control manager, operations manager, in multiple settings, sort manager, area manager, and all those roles are fairly similar in the sense of, again, making sure there's camaraderie. A big thing for me is as I get to know team members, it's not just like a check mark, like, okay, I talked to you, that's it. It's like getting to know little things about themselves, whatever they feel comfortable sharing, what drives them, what motivates them, what they don't want to do long term, short term. Even the most simple thing of how they like to be recognized. I've asked team members, do they prefer like a public setting, private setting, just so that way they're comfortable. And then as I follow up with maybe possible coaching conversations or recognizing for achievements, again, having those little plugins where I don't want every conversation to feel like they think they're a number. I want them to feel like they're valued, they're actual people. At the end of the day, I know they probably have 1,000+ things going on in life. Things could be going wrong, and they still find a way to get it together and come help the team.
So, how do you get people to really value opening up and then coalescing? Because teamwork is really hard. One of the things that we talk about at various times, and I talk about on the podcast, is the whole concept of trust. And in our world today, we find so many people not overly open to trust, and they're not trusting, but the biggest thing is they're not open to trust. How do you deal with that and get people to change? Because obviously, if you're going to have a good team, the members have to trust.
Of course. Well, a lot of it comes from development. I've had conversations with, even when I had a team of 150+ team members, again, I took the time to know every single one. And with those conversations, it's more of, again, like it could be a simple follow-up. So like very next morning, instead of, saying, hey, can you have you do this? It's also, hey, good morning. How was last night? I know you said you went to do so-and-so. And then from there, that other follow-up conversation, it goes back to, again, the development. They're doing all the hard work realistically in the sense of all the heavy lifting. The least I could do is like, okay, this guy wants to be a lead, a supervisor, he wants to be in inventory. I find ways to help develop them, set them up, so that way they see that I do care. Because at the end of the day, if you're part of my team, I care for you. I care for you to an extent, so that way you understand that I'm here to help you. It's not just there's always more people. There's always again, if you report to me or if you're part of my team, I want you to know that I have your back. And then that goes back down to again, kind of how you mentioned. Sometimes people are less willing to be trusted or don't want to share as much. And I picked up on body language over the years. That's a big thing for me. Someone can tell me one thing, but their body says another. And just being straight up with them, as respectful as I can, of course, saying, hey, like, I know you're saying this, but I can tell, like, you're not comfortable. Tell you what, we can follow up this conversation later, or, at least try this out. Work with me here, and if you really don't like it, it's not for you, we can stop, but at least try it out. And then just over time, they begin to see, like, I'm actually there to help, or, like, them trusting in me, here's the positive outcome that came out of it. So that way, it's not just me saying things to tickle their ears. It's also like, I'm following up, I'm being consistent. If you need something, hey, can you look into this for me? Sure. Because I have so many people asking that, I write things down in front of them. End of the day, I look through my sticky notes. I'm like, all right, did I do this? Did I do that? All right, let me get back to so-and-so. So that way they see that they're doing all these things for me. The least I could do is, again, have this follow-up and just be as consistent as I can.
Yeah. How did you learn all that? I mean, I would say you've not been in the workforce very long, but and that's okay. But the bottom line is that you clearly have learned a lot as you have been in the workforce, and probably I would think some of that has come from earlier kinds of things as well. How did you pick up all those concepts and start to put them to use?
It's a mixture of things. So even going back to there was a summer I spent with my dad when I was much younger, and he was a supervisor. And I would just pick up on little things that either he would tell me like, hey, here's what made me successful, or even if he didn't say it, I could visually see things again like the follow ups, checking in with his people, even though it's like, hey, can you get this done? While on the way, he'll say, hey, by the way, how are the kids? Little things like that I start to pick up. And even when I used to be a picker, working as a temporary team member at a warehouse when I was in college, excuse me, talking to fellow team members, what they liked, what they disliked about their supervisors, managers, even experienced it firsthand where I had a supervisor that didn't even say good morning, didn't even like remember my name. He just pointed and say, hey, can you do this? And little things like that where I would pick up and be like, you know what, if I'm ever in that position, that's something I definitely won't do. Or again, the most simple thing of when I was back in college in LBSA, it's a business organization, and I was the president. Little things again where I would assign my fellow board members tasks, but I would follow up because I want them to feel supported. I wouldn't give someone a task if I didn't feel confident that I could do it myself or find the resources to get it done. So little things like that over time, and then obviously being in the workforce, situations are very similar, but that little detail, that little detail that makes it different. Kind of meant to keep mental notes, so that way if it happens again, it's like a trigger. I know how to react to that, so to speak.
So when you've got a team member who's maybe not necessarily contributing like they should, or maybe that you think should be contributing and they're not, what do you do about that?
Well, first and foremost, it starts with simple conversation of what's going on. But at the same time, I balance that conversation with how can I help you? Because I like to give the benefit of the doubt 9 times out of 10, where I believe people don't wake up and they're going to say, oh, I'm going to suck today at work, or I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah.
I like to give the benefit of the doubt. Like they come in, hey, I see that you're not being as productive. What barriers are you facing? What can I do to help? Is everything okay? Excuse me. And things like that where just even again have that simple conversation, and sometimes they brush it off at first, like, oh, I'm fine, everything's good, and I'll pick it up. And I say, I'll tell you what, I'll follow up later. Just want to make sure that you're doing okay. The follow up happens, they're either about the same performance or just a slightly better. Again, it's that follow up where I've had team members open up in the past that, hey, I got this actually going on in my life, divorce, issues with kids, etc. And just taking the time to listen. Because, as I mentioned before, so much goes on in everyone's lives that we often forget that, other people are going through things too. And I think that's also what contributes to my success early on, is recognizing that. At the end of the day, yes, there's a job to do, but I'm working with people. I'm leading people. I need to understand that I need to have empathy and sympathy at the same time. So even if I don't have kids at the moment, but if someone tells me they have issues with kids, or again, the list goes on. If I haven't experienced that, just listening and saying, hey, I haven't gone through that. I appreciate you opening up and telling me about that, but I think these resources might help, or I'll tell you what, I'm gonna follow up later. I just want to make sure that I'm doing everything in my hands or my power to make sure you're heard, that you're valued. And then again, those things that usually help pick it up. Excuse me, I've been talking a lot this whole week. Or sometimes they're not as receptive and they're still, they're very closed off. With those, again, I still offer my help, open door policy, but I still follow the part of my job where I go through retraining, work instructions, etc., making sure that I'm doing observations so that way they know, even if they don't want to open up or they don't want to say what's going on, I'm still there to follow through the process to ensure that at least everything by the standards being done correctly.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of important. It's a matter of understanding all the way around. And as the leader, and I think there is a big difference between being a leader and being a boss. So, and that's why I put it that way. But as the leader, you are the person who is needing to coalesce the team. Well, how would you define the difference between, say, a leader and a boss?
Boss takes credit, points the fingers, just tells people what to do, and gets mad when results aren't there. a leader takes the time to develop his people, listen to his people, lead by example, get his hands dirty, making sure that everyone uh, understands and respects, and as well as just overall making sure that when the results are not there, the leader's reflecting on what he could have done better too, not just maybe one person specifically that messed up, like, okay, what could I have done to help that scenario?
Yeah, one of the things that I've always felt when I've been tasked with leading teams is I say to my colleagues on the team, I'm not here to boss you around. The assumption is you know what you're doing. On the other hand, my job is to add value to what you do. So we need to figure out with each individual, how do I add value to you? And I think that's really important, because if you're able to enhance and add value, you're going to make everyone obviously more successful, which makes you successful as well. But it's about adding value.
I agree.
And I think that's really pretty important to really be able to make that happen. So you learned to somewhat connect fairly early on in life, since you were doing that by being a good observer. And I think that's probably the best way to describe it. You observed in all the things that you did, and you chose to put it into practice, didn't you?
I did.
Which is always a really helpful thing. So what's the really hard part for you in terms of connecting with others?
I think the hard part is, again, as a leader, as a person, I believe people should know their leadership style, and not just leadership style, but even just what they're like. What do I dislike? What do I like in terms of my crowd of people? So, like, for example, I tell people all the time, I'm an omnivert, extrovert, introvert, right? I love my alone time. I have my small crowd of friends that I like to spend time with. I really only like to spend time with people that I enjoy with. I don't have time for wasting time, so to speak. So understanding that, and then when I come across a brand new team member or a situation where this team member is maybe like the total opposite of me, or this person the opposite of me, it drains my social battery very quickly. And the hard part is, maybe it's a long day for everyone. Maybe mentally I'm just right there, like I'm like borderline. So just trying to bring it together, to have that interaction, so that way, even on those long and tough days, again, being consistent as possible with having that simple interaction, which, when you think about it, might not be that simple. But again, that interaction is taking place. And then at the end of the day, all my team members can say, even if they don't like my leadership style, or they don't like me specifically, they respect it, because, again, the consistency was there, and they see that I was fair with everybody across the board. I try to help everybody across the board. And the other thing too is, not just with necessarily the personality, so to speak, but certain key factors, of course. Like when I first started, it was a little harder to connect with the older crowd, so to speak, because I was fresh out of college. Some of my team members could have been my parents, could have been my grandparents, and it comes down to getting that respect without demanding it. So I think that's the issue that a lot of younger leaders or new leaders face, is they demand respect, but they have shown little to earn it. So again, taking the time to find common themes to talk about, and even if there's nothing, finding ways to still see what they like and going from there. Because I guarantee at least there's one thing that can always be discussed, that you have that small connection with that older team member, and then you get to build that rapport with them. So eventually, they respect you, but it wasn't forced. It was also very transparent across the board.
Yeah, bosses demand respect rather than commanding respect by what they do, which is, I think, again, that's another maybe way to distinguish between the two. Do you have, you talked about two things. I'm going to ask you about both of those. You talked about it's with some people, it's easy to drain your social battery, and I can appreciate that. How do you deal with that? What do you do?
Oh man, work setting, private setting, they're all very different. But if we're talking about just the work setting, it really comes down to before and the after, as I call it. I had this talk with one of my friends the other day too. When you're a leader of people, or even in my other roles, leader of leaders, you need time to walk away from the business. I'm not talking about like a whole day necessarily, but like 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it may be, to yourself. recharge, do something you enjoy, listen to a song, maybe lunch, maybe get a quick snack, just, close the laptop, step away, and being able to find that little peace in the middle of the day. So being able to do that before and after, especially in those when you're going to go into one where that's going to drain you really quickly, being able to recharge, because it's not fair, or the way I see it, it's not fair to both parties. It's not fair to myself that I'm not taking care of myself, but it's also not fair to my other team members, my other people that report to me if I'm not in the best or in one of the best conditions to take care of them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and I think that does make a lot of sense. It's all about the fact that you have to be on your game, and no matter what others might say, it's your own internal pressure that requires you to be on your game as much as anything. So the very fact that you address that issue and recognize that issue is pretty important to be able to go into situations that can be very draining. You do prepare, and it's all about preparation, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, 100%.
The other question that comes to mind is, you mentioned that you've had situations where you, as a young person almost out of college, and were tasked with leading teams that had people who were significantly older, as you said, could be your parents or your grandparents. Do you have a story of how you turned one of those around and made it work?
Yes, I do, actually. So even going into like previous things we're discussing, a lot of it comes from, which I'm sure we'll discuss in a bit, is the mental health portion. So one way that I was able to turn one around was, again, very new to the team. I'm interacting with all my team members on a one-on-one basis, getting to know them. But this specific, out of respect, I won't say the name, but I remember having this.
We don't need names.
There you go. Having a conversation with him. And like everyone was always telling me like prior to, like, oh, he's always been a hothead. He's always been kind of to himself. And I'm just like, as in, I should take that time to, see why he's like that. So as I have those conversations, besides the simple introduction, hello, my name is so-and-so. I'm your new supervisor, et cetera, et cetera. Just digging down and just being as blunt but as respectful as because I like to, it's like a bandage, get out of the way. And just straight up say, hey, man, I noticed that you look like you're in an unpleasant mood. And the reason why I'm following up is I want to make sure that you're okay. If you're comfortable sharing what's going on with you, I'm a big mental health advocate. It could be the most simple thing that maybe is recent or something that's been on for a while. I'm here if you like to talk about it. You're not inclined to, but just know you have the option in case no one's ever offered that to you. And if you don't want to talk to me, I can provide resources. I can partner with HR that they can also provide resources that maybe they can connect you as well that will make you feel more comfortable. And there was like a little pause, and he straight told me that you're the first one to actually ask me anything around that realm in who knows how long. So we're in my office at the time, and told me everything that was going on with him. We spent almost 35, 40 minutes, and the whole time I was just actively listening, making mental notes, and just making sure that he was heard. And when we were done, I thanked him. I said, I appreciate that you were comfortable and open enough to explain everything going on with you and why you were in an unpleasant mood or why you've always been that way. And he took time also to thank me for actually listening. And I would always have my follow-ups with him as well. Like, hey, just want to follow up. How's it going with this? Some days are good, some days not so good. But he turned out to be one of my better workers. Whenever I needed something, the most simple thing, I could be like, hey, can you get this done? And when you're done, I'll follow up with you. I just want to make sure that everything back home is still doing okay. He said, yes, sir, whatever you need. No hesitation, we'll take care of it. And to this day, I don't talk to him anymore because I'm no longer at that facility, but I hope he's doing well.
It's all about communications, isn't it?
9 times out of 10.
Yeah. People just don't work at communicating. And it's scary in our world in general today. We have gotten to a point where it is so very hard to have any kind of conversations with people. People just don't want to converse. And I realize that there are subjects that can be sensitive, like politics is a perfect example, that we have gotten to the point where no one can have discussions about it. My opinion is right, yours is wrong, and that's all there is to it. And we don't communicate. We have lost the art of conversation.
I agree.
How do we fix that?
Oh man, I can't speak for everybody. But for me, like me and my friends, because I have some friends that have different, like for example, political views, religious views. I don't like to put down anybody and say like you're wrong, I'm right. To me, it's just like, look, it's your opinion, it's valid because it's yours. As long as it's not bringing anybody down, by all means, you know what, I'll listen to it. I won't debate it necessarily, as long as you don't come from mine either, or like if you actually listen and understand why I have my point of view, and I'll do my best to do it for yours as well.
And that's really the issue. It shouldn't be debated; it should be discussed if you're going to do it. And that's the big problem, that people think you have to debate, and my way is the right way and your way isn't the right way, and we don't get anywhere when we do that.
Not at all.
The reality is that when we really sit down and listen and have meaningful discussions, we may or may not change someone else's opinion, but at least we hopefully communicate to the point where they at least have some respect for someone else's opinion other than their own, which is, of course, the big problem. All too often, it just doesn't really go that way. So,
unfortunately, no.
Yeah. So you clearly look out for others. Who or what helped you really get into that mindset? And I think that's a good way of expressing it, that it is a mindset that you look out for others and you help others.
First and foremost, definitely my parents. Like I'll start with my dad again, going back to spending that summer with him. Just seeing how he took care of his people. If they need something, he was basically like, okay, I'll get it done as soon as I can, and he would. And then I would just again observing how easily they followed him, not because he was their boss, but because of those little things that I could tell his team was actually happy to be working for him. Another one is my mother. Again, growing up with a lot of things we went through, I could tell that some days my mom would just appreciate somebody besides like maybe myself, just heard her out, things that she was going through. And that made me, again, put myself in the shoes of, if I ever have a team, if they report to me, if they're mothers, fathers, whatever the case may be, again, they're going through real life situations. And again, just hearing out or providing an ear, possible solutions would go such a long way. But then there was also this, going back to when I was a picker as a temp, finishing, my last year of college before I became a supervisor. Started off, again, brand new, didn't really know anybody. No one really talked to me besides, people that worked near me. Supervisor, not even a good morning, just like, get to work. But there was this one guy, and again, out of respect, I won't say his name. But older gentleman, he was the only one that actually went out of his way to, good morning, how are you doing? I see you're new here. If you need any help, please let me know. I'll be over here. And it wasn't just that one time. Again, he continued to follow up. He didn't have to do this, but the fact that he did, it made me feel really good that knowing that, somebody noticed. I'm not just, again, like another number, just another nobody. And even the days that I missed because, I had classes or things going on in life, the next day when I did show up to work, he said, hey, I didn't see you yesterday. Again, the fact that somebody notices, those are the things that really stuck with me. And it made me realize, like, he's not even like the supervisor or the boss, but that's something that I would want from my supervisor boss. So those are things that I started to pick up on. And he's no longer with us. May he rest in peace. But the fact that he took the time is what I'm trying to say. And that's something that, whether it was me as a supervisor, me as one of my many manager roles, again, whether it's my team members, it's the supervisor that report to me, just taking the time to pull them to the side and say, hey, work aside, all this BS that we can deal with to the side. What's going on? Anything I can help you with? How's your mental health? And those are the things that just this little simple check-ins that went a long way, not just for myself, but went a long way for the people that came along for the ride.
So you did a lot of work in business and business administration and so on. Do you think that college helped really prepare you for the kinds of things you're doing now when you're talking about teamwork and all those sorts of things, and not the theory behind what you do, but real preparation in building teams and the kinds of things that we've been talking about for, gosh, now over a half hour. Did college help really prepare you for that, or did that really come from other kinds of environmental issues?
It's a mixture. I'm a big fan of the education system.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think it comes down to obviously whatever your major, your field is. Like, for example, again, being in business is not just going to classes, because that's the textbook only teaches you so much, right? The textbook might be outdated with, the math might be there. If you're doing finance, that's pretty much going to always be the same, right? But like in my case, when I'm dealing with, well, not dealing, but I'm working with people, my people, what really helped bring that together was joining organizations in college where you have to work together, where you become like an officer, like, for example, again, Latino Business Student Association, LBSA. I started off as a general member my freshman year, and throughout the years made my way to being the president. Being in that role was so crucial for my leadership development early on, because, again, I was able to apply, as you mentioned, observe and apply previous experiences that I already had, and seeing them how they play out with my peers, so to speak, so people closer to my age, and then being able to get into the workforce and apply it, but then adjust or tweak little portions, because it's no longer people my age. Now it's very different. It's more diverse. It's very different work that has to get done, so to speak. But still, again, the education system did a good job of, when it came down to, again, since I was general management, I had my head in everything and giving me insight to it. But then also getting involved with organizations on campus was the cherry on top, so to speak.
If you could change something in the whole education system and what you learned or what you didn't learn, what would you change from a college standpoint, a curricula standpoint?
Probably more like towards the first 2 years, just because like it wasn't really towards the last 2 years that I got to focus more on what I wanted to do. So like the first 2 years was kind of like when I had like extra electives, that I really like, okay, I've got these classes that I look like I would enjoy taking. Okay, now I got these other two. What do I want to take, or like what's left? That's not already like taken up by the higher up juniors and seniors, so to speak. So being able to just have a little more control in the sense of, this is truly what I want to do. Let me expand my horizons in this area, compared to now it's like, oh, well, I guess I'll take oceanography because I have this free elective that I need credits, but it's like everything else I want to do is taken up.
Well, how would you change the whole curriculum to make it more practical? Or would you?
Not the whole curriculum, but at least just change again the part where truly just taking the classes that were going to benefit you the most. Because again, full respect to UCR, full respect to the professor and everything. Oceanography, I only took, that's like one example. I only took that because, again, I had an elective. I need the credits to graduate, and it's also everything else was taken up. But I was in a way kind of forced to take that class. So now, if I could just change that and actually take a class that would have been more beneficial, again, maybe like people organization skills, or as I became a manager now, looking back, like a lot more of the debit and credit, the finance portions, things like that would actually benefit more in the long term.
Do you plan on going back to school and doing any more studies, going for a more advanced degree?
The MBA is always in the back of my mind, but it's expensive. So with all the companies I worked for, they all do provide tuition reimbursement to an extent, but it's also just trying to find the time for it. Right now, as mentioned earlier, I'm big on time. It's not just the trade-off of the money, but it's also the trade-off of on my days off, do I really want to be spending more time even though it's an investment in me, do I really want to spend time taken away from enjoying the little things, relaxing? So it's always like a back and forth where maybe who knows, I'll go back, but if not, knocking on wood. I like to say my experience for itself speaks so far for getting to those higher positions that I keep going for.
Do you do much reading about different subjects relating to what you do, management theory, team building, and any of that sort of stuff? Do you still study that in some way?
Yeah, I read a couple of books here and there. a lot of my previous jobs and even the one I'm at provide books on leadership. Like actually, I'm on this on my phone, but it's being balanced by a book right now. The question behind the question. So basically, what to really ask yourself to eliminate victim thinking, complaining, and procrastination. So little things like that I follow up with just so that way it's not just for myself, but then how can I get that concept and possibly use it on a team member that might need it one day, one of my leads, one of my supervisors, etc.
You've talked about mental health in various ways during our time and when we talked before. What prompts your great interest in the whole idea of mental health?
Well, for me, like many other, I won't even say leaders at this point, people, um, I've had my fair shares of struggles with mental health, stemming even back from college, and not necessarily from the stress of college, but just life in general, So little things like that, there was times when I wasn't in the best headspace, want to be closed off, just getting just a lot of, not even a lot, but thousands of things going through my head, um, and just being able to, thankfully now I'm in a much better headspace, but getting the help that I needed, and that goes into kind of everything we've been talking about as I get to know my people, so to speak, letting them know that yes, we got a job to do, we got things to take care of. It's a business, but I want to make sure I'm also taking care of you. If you're in a good mental health space right now, great, fantastic. And if you're not, I'm here if you need to discuss it. I know maybe mine have been a little different compared to the mental health issue they're going through, but at least I know what it's like to not be okay. And just remember that that's fine too. But it's a matter of speaking up, getting the help, and ensuring that they always have an outlet for it.
So a lot of your mental health discussions are really arranged around stress.
I mean, stress of the things. It's funny. It's like the things that I can't handle, and then once I do, it's like, all right, that's gone. But it's also like the things that are out of my control too. Where, like many people, I'm sure, like it bothers us. We try to kind of like forget about it because like, look, if it's out of my hands, not much I can do. It is what it is. But at the same time, it's always lingering there. So being able to, again, make sure I'm still okay, taking the time I need to make sure I can take care of others as well. But being able to find ways to limit that stress that lingers in the back of someone's mind.
So what would you advise to someone who's maybe going through some sort of stress or mental health issue? And that's such a general question because there's so many different kinds of mental health issues. But what kind of advice would you give to someone, or maybe someone who's listening who may be having a hard time with something?
Easier said than done, but definitely figuring out two things is one, maybe what triggers the most of it, or what's the main thing that you're constantly thinking of, and again, dividing it to kind of what I said, what you can control, what you can't control, and the other is just getting an outlet. Again, if it's my team, I tell them all the time, if you're comfortable, I don't mind taking the time you want to speak to me about it. I can have that conversation with you about it. Or the most simple thing is I can just shut up and listen. Because sometimes that's what someone wants. Just for someone to know what's going on, to let them know that, the world might not come crashing down right away, but at least someone heard them out. And then the other thing is ultimately when you gain that, as I mentioned, this part two, the getting help is once you figure out what it is, again, whether it's a friend, family member, even just therapy, ensuring that someone is there for you. Because a lot of the times I feel we have that mindset of it is what it is, which, I'm guilty of it too. And we just kind of like let things ride out, things build up, and eventually it comes out very nasty. Or it continues to get built up, and then, you're in a much worse state than you would have ever been if you would just talk to somebody about it.
You said something that really is so important. It more often than not makes perfect sense too, as you put it, shut up and listen. We spend so much time talking and not listening and observing. And I love the fact that you are very much an observer and you're willing to listen, because a lot of times, really not a lot you can say. It really is going to be best if somebody can just talk something through. I've talked to a lot of people who are coaches and talked to some people who are therapists. And of course, what what most people would say is that it's all about self-discovery, or it very well can be that you have to figure out what is really bothering you. And good listeners can ask questions, but we really have to figure out most things for ourselves. And all we can do is be guided down the right path.
Yep. I'm a big believer that, again, I don't have all the answers. Even though if I tell you, like, let me get the right resources. But sometimes the most simple thing with working with others is just being an active listener, or just not even being an active listener, but being able to understand that this situation that someone's providing or speaking to you about is something that you've never gone through, or, God willing, you'll never go through. But the fact that you can be sympathetic and empathetic, relate as much as possible, and at the same time be as quiet as possible, so that way they just have their moment to be as vulnerable as they can with you, is such a huge thing that not many people, I feel, see the value in until they've gone through it, or they see someone else go through it.
Have you ever had any examples where what you do as a team leader and an observer hasn't worked, and that something just didn't work out in terms of dealing with someone?
One of my roles, I would probably say there was, again, because when I observe, it's not just people's actions by body language or what they do, but it's also like when they say certain things, I pick up on certain cues that the body does. Again, kind of mixture body language too. But there was one time I called a team member to my office, told them it's okay to let it out, whatever's going on. They were just, for a moment, just quiet, trying to get the words, because sometimes and I've gone through this where it's hard to put it into words, right? And it's a little hard for me to listen or help if they themselves can't explain it. So in that situation, I told them, like, look, I understand. I'm not forcing you. I'm not expecting you to be able to put it into words either. It's like that sometimes. And again, just that moment of silence where, at least for myself, I don't judge. I don't question it. To me, it's like, maybe this moment of silence is still them just trying to get everything together in there. And then ultimately, I couldn't help directly right away. But what I was able to do, I was like, look, I know I kind of put you on the spot by asking that. So I also apologize. That's on me. But at the same time, I also don't want you to beat yourself up for not being able to explain how you feel, because that's valid. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's a mixture of so many things that words don't do it justice, right? So I was able to at least partner them with HR, and we go to therapy. And unfortunately, at least with me, they stopped working at that facility like a month after, just because they needed to take care of themselves and do what they had to do. But at least with me, it was a win and loss. It was a win because I would love to kept them on, to let them know that I'm there, and it would have been nice to feel that I could have done more. But it's also a loss because, again, I can only do so much, and that goes back to being sympathetic, empathetic, but knowing where your line is also drawn. Where, like, as much as I would love to, here's where I can't. So I haven't heard from them ever again. I hope they're doing well. That's one thing I do look back on, and I'm just like a little guilty, but at the same time, it's like, again, there's only so much I could do, because I wish I was able to do more, but sometimes it's just out of my expertise, so to speak.
Well, and you can't teach people things, and they really have to teach themselves. All you can do is guide the way, and there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
So do you spend much time, like at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day, doing any kind of self analysis or introspection? What worked yesterday or earlier today? What didn't work? Even something that worked, what could I do to improve it? Or what could I do to have addressed this situation differently? It may come pretty natural to you, but do you do much self-analysis?
Every day. I love my positions, the ones I worked in past and present now, just because I know, I tell people, I know when I won and I know when I lost, so to speak, that day. And when I say that, it's like I can, kind of like how you mentioned, go back and say, hey, this didn't work. What could I have done? Or what at what point of the day should I have done this? Or being able to kind of it's like a football game or basketball. Look at the highlights. Okay, this was good. This was good. Okay, here's where this went wrong. What could I have done there? So being able to replay that in my head, but also what I tell people all the time is having that short term memory. We're like, okay, once I figured it out, it's done. Day's done. Stop lingering on it because it I can't change anything more. We look at tomorrow. Remember what I'm gonna do or what's gonna be done different. But in terms of the failure, so to speak, now it's like forget it. It's done. New day. All you can do is get better, right? So beginning of the day, I do that. Again, comparison to a previous day, what went wrong, what went good, and even the days where everything, let's say, knocking on wood, it went perfectly smooth, couldn't ask for more. I still think back and look back. All right, I did this for the team. I did this for the facility. The operation looks good. What could I have done for myself though? Because at the end of the day, I think that's the balance too, where it's not just as a servant leader, not just taking care of my team and the business, but it's also making sure that if I want to repeat that same performance, possibly, am I still in a position to take care of myself, to take care of others, and go from there?
As part of your leadership style, do you regard yourself more of a servant than anything else?
Many times, yes, because as mentioned before, a lot of the positions I've worked in, whether it's supervisor or manager, um, the people that report to me, bless their souls, they do all the heavy lifting. I'm just blessed to be in a position where they trust my thinking, they trust my direction, the big picture that I want to go towards, and they follow me and they see that I want to step in and get my hands dirty too, but ultimately I'm there to put them in positions to also succeed because a lot of my success, probably 90% of my success, even though I can look back and say, no, well, I did this for myself, or I did this to set people up, yes. But if no one is there to help steer the ship with me or help move the ship, it's just me by myself, and I'm not gonna get nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah. It's still all about the team and should be about the team.
Yeah.
So, if you could, is there anything that you would change about your journey, your personal journey, and your journey as a leader as well?
Looking back,
Yeah,
personal
kind of
journey,
retrospective a little here.
yeah. Personal journey, probably at my. It's always weird to say this because I'm only 26 and
It's
my
okay.
my career's only been about like 4 to 5 years already, but probably like in my much younger part or my much younger start of my career is looking back and again as I'm an advocate for mental health now, being a bigger advocate back then for myself too. I feel if I would have spoken up sooner or didn't try to brush it off, saying I got this. Just it's whatever. It is what it is. Another day. If I would have done that sooner, I would have probably avoided a lot more mental health damage or stress to myself, and I would have put myself in a position for even earlier success or just earlier moments of peace, so to speak. But in terms of professional, I would probably keep everything the same. I've learned a lot. Failures, wins, losses. It's all part of growing. The only thing I probably would change is going back to again that bless that guy so that when I was that 10 picker that he looked after me and he checked on me. I wish I would just had more conversations with him because I feel like those are the kind of people that we need in this world. And I feel like as much as he was checking up on me, I could have done better to also check up on him and make sure he was good too.
Yeah. Well, you'll have, I'm sure, other opportunities with people to do that very same thing, and more than you did before.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that I talk about a lot on this podcast, and you've alluded to it, and I think it's extremely important, is we really need to not worry about the things that we don't have control over, because as you've pointed out, really stresses us out. And we really should focus on the things we can control, because the rest will have to take care of itself, and it will take care of itself, but we're not going to be able to do anything to address it directly.
And that's something that even now I still it's an ongoing battle because it's always gonna be a thing. There's always things that come up where it's out of my hands, but it's like if it, you tend to just think so much about it, and I tell people that's like one of the main killers of joy is just worrying about things that are out of control, which can easier said than done. But just taking the time to just find those little things in life that get your mind off of that, so that we can just enjoy yourself.
Yeah, there are too many forces that try to make us think about all the things that we don't have control over, and it's a tough discipline to just focus on the things over which we really have control, and to not stress and bother so much about everything else. But it's a tough lesson to learn, but one that hopefully more of us will catch on to as we go forward. What's the biggest thing you would take away from everything that you've done or has happened to you so far?
I mean, thankfully, I could say I'm applying it, but the biggest thing I could take away, not just for myself, but as I've spoken to multiple student orgs and classes, and going back being a guest speaker, and even just telling my leads and my supervisors that I'm trying to develop. Biggest thing that I can always take away is a mixture of two things. Is one, take care of your people, and they'll take care of you. I believe that in all aspects of life. Your family, your friends, your team members. Take care of them, make sure they're good, their mental health is good. You're developing them, you're helping them any way, shape, or form to get better. To that way they understand the impact that they're doing, the impact that you're doing in life, and even their indirect impact, because I believe that, if I help this person, they'll eventually help somebody else the same way I help them. It's a domino effect. And then the other mixture of it is just, end of the day, life is life. Things are going to happen. Just make sure you're taking care of not just your body physically, but mentally, because I feel the mental part's overlooked so many times, and that's usually what leads to our own demise, so to speak.
Yeah, and certainly good sage advice to give to other people. Take care of yourself and watch out for others.
Yep.
Well, this has been fun, enjoyable, and I really appreciate your time. Can people reach out to you and talk with you in any way? How would they do that?
Oh yeah, by all means. I believe you have my LinkedIn and you also have my email. They can reach out on either one.
Why don't you go ahead and say those, if you would, and spell anything that's relevant to spell.
Well, the email is grodr025@gmail.com. I'll say that one more time. Gmail is grodr025@gmail.com. As far as the LinkedIn, it's very long to say, but just look up Gustavo E with a period Rodriguez, and you should be able to find me. The title of my position I put is operations leader. That way it's a little easier instead of trying to find like operations manager, supervisor, etc.
And people can call you Gus?
I would prefer it just because it's the old cliche. If you call me Gustavo, it's like you're talking to my dad.
There you go. And it gets you to the point quicker also. Well, I want to really thank you for being here, and I want to thank you for listening to us. Hopefully you found our conversation useful and relevant in some way. I'd love to hear from you and would really appreciate you emailing me. You can reach me at Michael H.I., MICHAELHI at Accessibe, ACCESSIBE.com. Or go to our podcast page, www.michaelhingson.com/podcast, and Michael Hingson's MICHAELHINGSON. So michaelhingson.com/podcast. And wherever you're listening, please give us a 5-star rating. We really value those ratings and your reviews. Hopefully you really like what you're hearing. And if you do, we want to know it. And if you have any thoughts, suggestions, or ideas of other people who ought to come on Unstoppable Mindset as guests, and Gus, the same for you. Love to hear any ideas. We are always looking for more people to come on Unstoppable Mindset. So one last time though, Gus, I want to thank you for being here, and we really appreciate your time and value all the things that you said. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.